So this is the Spring MasterClass by Master Coaches Summit this week, March 24th through 28th. Today we are with Elias. We have already the first the session. Tomorrow we have 3 sessions, just in case you can check the calendar on our website, with Karen White at 8:30, with Mariana Lead at noon, and with Sofia Shuhas at 5:30 p.m. And of course, we have an interesting demonstration by Marcia Reynolds on Friday at 5:30 p.m. So if you want to register to any of these or all of these events and more, the ones that are happening Wednesday and Thursday, please do so by going to our calendar in the webpage, icfsfl.org. So you can get everything there. And today we are introducing Elias Scultori. What you see, Elias is a master certified coach renowned for empowering leaders to seamlessly integrate the coach approach into their leadership styles. Elias has coached and trained leaders in over 40 countries on 6 continents. You've been to Antarctica. He is an experienced and innovative coach educator, holding a faculty position at UT Dallas and being a co-founder of the Prime Coaching Academy. Elias is an official certification assessor for the ICF and operates as a registered mentor coach and supervisor. His coaching approach focuses on optimizing purpose, innovation, and productivity for individuals and teams, cascading in a transformative impact on their organizations and communities. So, without further ado, I will leave you with Elias. All yours.
Hello, everybody, and it's such an honor and a pleasure to be with you here today. We have this hour and a half that we are going to be in conversation. So I highly encourage, if you can, turn your cameras on, and whenever you're ready, please turn your microphones on, put yourself off mute, interrupt me, and talk with me, because we are going to have a conversation here. If you've ever been in any programs that I facilitate, you know that I am not the lecturer. I am here for us to spark the conversation and see what we can generate from the wisdom in the room. You are all experienced coaches. You are trained coaches, I believe. And even if you are not a trained coach, but you're curious about coaching, you bring your experience as a human being, as a professional. And I think that all of this will be very valuable to our interaction here. So please join the conversation. I don't have any slides or anything like that. I'm just going to put some points and some questions in the room for us to consider and see what we can come up with as a group here. If you probably saw the advertisement for this session, and the advertisement is called, the title of this session is called Hat On, Hat Off. Oh, and I forgot, I was going to even wear a hat today, but I forgot. So where does this come from, Elias? Hat on, hat off. If you have been in the coaching industry long enough, you've probably heard some even mentor coaching, coach training programs, even encouraging coaches in the middle of the session to, okay, we're having this conversation with the client, and all of a sudden, we may have an experience, a thought, an idea, a suggestion, an advice that pops inside of us. But we learned in coach training that, coaches are not supposed to give any advice. Coaches are not supposed to tell the client anything. So, okay, we go and we announce to the client, I'm going to take my coaching hat off, and I'm going to put my consulting hat on, and then we give all the advice and the telling and the answers and the solutions and the ideas to the client. And then we announce to the client again, okay, I'm going to take my consulting hat off, my mentoring hat off, my teaching hat off, whatever the hat was, and I'm going to put my coaching hat on back again, and off I go. Believe it or not, this was a very common practice at the beginning of coaching. And to this day, some coaches still use that particular technique. Well, let me ask you a question. What do you think of that when I describe this particular practice? I'm going to open to the room. Yes, Lisa.
Hi, good morning. It felt really disruptive to me, to the flow of the connection.
Yeah, disrupt, right? Like, so here we are in one mindset, in one process, and then all of a sudden we're, okay, I'm going to go into a different persona, right? And I'm going to do this, that I learned that it's not necessarily coaching. I'm going to put a different label on myself, and then I'm going to come back. Right, that's a great point there. Anyone else? Any other responses to that idea of hat on, hat off?
Yeah, so for me, being a relatively new coach, I've only been doing this for about 4 years. It's felt wrong, like oh, I'm not supposed to tell them anything, and I think it's good that I do tiptoe around it, and acknowledge it to the person. But I agree. I think, you saying disruptive is a really good way of having, what happens when it's occurring.
Yeah. So I have a podcast called Prime Space. And in one of the episodes of this podcast the title is Hat On and Hat Off. And I talk a lot about this idea. We have evolved as a community from this type of practice. And I thought that it was interesting for us to address, because I still think that in the industry, there is this whole thing, oh my gosh, I'm not supposed to tell the client anything. I'm just supposed to ask a question. Right? Nothing else. I only ask questions. There is another episode that I talk about, like, what are other skills that a coach has besides asking questions, right? We don't only ask a question. Coaching is a conversation. Coaching is an exchange there. And thank you, Gaston, put a link to the podcast there. Please listen, please subscribe. I try to put episodes every other week or so. But there is this idea that coaching we are there only to ask questions, and absolutely, right? Even people say, like, what is pure coaching and what is something else? Like, I don't understand when people say that pure coaching. If it's not pure, is it coaching? Like, is there such a thing, right? Like, it's coaching or it's not coaching to me, right? So we have many other skills besides questioning. And one of the skills included in our coaching core competencies is the idea of sharing. If you look at competency number 7, standard number 11, you're going to see that coaches share insights, coaches share information, coaches share observations, feelings without attachment, so that it is to support the client in their growth and development. Sharing information and sharing what is coming inside of us is a coaching skill. I feel that this whole idea of hat on, hat off, it's kind of a cop-out. It's a way, I would think that this is an invitation for us as coaches to deepen our understanding of the competencies, deepen our skills, including the skill of sharing, so that we are able to utilize ourselves as instruments for the client to grow. Coaching supervision, the whole process of supervision that we got, especially coming from Europe, right? talks a lot about the idea of utilizing the practitioner as an instrument to the development of the other. I don't think that this is only a point in supervision. This is something that we should incorporate in coaching. It's part of the coaching core competencies. But then there is the question of how, right? We are going to do this. But before we go there, let me ask you a question. So where is this coming from, this idea that coaches don't share, or coaches don't give advice, or coaches don't tell, that we only ask a question? Where does this idea come from? Because there is some truth in that, right? But where does that come from, this idea? And sorry, my question is not being clear enough. So I'm going to pause and I'm going to ask the question. Where do you think this idea of not giving a piece of information to the client or giving advice to the client come from in coaching?
Came from my classes that I took.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very, very clearly, So, and that's why I think I'm so nervous about it when I do it. So,
yeah.
I think it comes from the desire not to limit the client's possibilities, because as soon as we direct or share in a way that is specific, what worked for us may not work for them.
Good point there, Lisa. I think that you listened to that podcast already.
Oh, many times. I'm very tempted by the hat on, half off thing.
I love that. Katya, you put yourself off mute.
Yes, you're going to listen to my dogs that are in the back.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm thinking that probably, I'm thinking when you begin to get training in coaching, it is important to distinguish what's coaching, what's a consultant, what's therapy. So maybe it's like you need to be in boxes, so you don't have the temptation to be offering all the time, like in a consultant role. No? But then when you progress in your coaching practice and you're receiving something that you sense that it will be helpful for your client, that would be the moment you can share, and maybe you could say, I'm gonna, mention what you're gonna do, and maybe moving a little bit from the traditional coaching role.
Yeah, that's what we need to talk about, this idea of moving away from traditional coaching. My goal here today is that we are going to get to a place where I am able to share within the space of coaching, because it's right there in our competencies. It's not something that Elias is inventing. Competency number 7, standard number 11, coaches share observations, feelings, insights, right? It's part of that. But Katya, you raise a wonderful point here, especially when, I have my own coach training program, and we have a level 1 training and we have a level 2 training. This aspect of level 1 is, preparing for ACC, level 2, preparing for PCC. And this aspect of sharing information, we address on level 2. Not on level 1. We touch a little bit on level 1, but we don't develop as much. And that is exactly what Katya said. We have been well domesticated, and I use that word very, very purposefully. We have been very well domesticated to know, to have the answer, to solve problems, right? In our personal lives, in our educational life, in our professional lives, we have been well rewarded to be independent, know what to do, solve problems, and have answers. That's what the reward came to us. So our minds are well trained to solve problems. And here comes a person that we care for. Our clients come to us and there is an issue. What happens to our brain? Tick, 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 tick. Immediately starts creating, answers and solving the problem and finding what are the avenues, what are the resources. Immediately, we are well trained to do that. Here comes coaching and says, hey, give the other a chance. Put all of that mechanism that we have created so well, put that to the side and give the other person a chance for them to develop that muscle of exploring what is happening in their particular situation so that they can come up with the answers that are best for them. What? So all of this training, all of this hard work that I put to be the professional that I am, to have all of the 15 PhDs on my wall and have the 150 years of experience in my profession, that doesn't count anymore? Like I put my whole value as myself on all of these accolades that I got. And now you're telling me that I'm supposed to put that to the side for the sake of the other. That is huge. So that's why in coach training, at the beginning of coach training, if it's a good coach training program, usually we suggest the students to, let's put this sharing, let's put this advice, let's put this whole idea of solving the problem to the side. Let's build the muscle on the other side. Let's be more curious. Let's ask questions. Because in the coaching mindset, and here's the primary reason why we as coaches put the brakes on the sharing, right? Because we believe in the resourcefulness and the potential of that individual in front of us. The moment that I go and I answer a question, the moment that I go and simply tell the client, we are actually undermining that individual. What do you think of that statement? The moment that I simply tell the client, the moment that I simply give an answer to the client, the moment that I solve the problem for the client, I am undermining that individual. What do you think of that? Yes, Scott.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that, because just like you were saying, we're so used to, when we grow up, when we're at school, when we're in our profession, fixing and solving, there might be on the client side the tendency or the default mode of not working so hard and just saying, well, that's what I pay you for, to come up with the answer and the solution. And that's not helping them to grow, to just lay back and let you do the hard work. So I think there's some truth to that. And I'm curious if the guarding of hat on, hat off is to help them to keep thinking by your statement rather than, okay, we're all done. So that's all off the top of my head, Elias. What?
I think you have a point there. Let's hear what Chuck has to say.
I think what you said really resonates for me, and also what Scott just shared. And I think that even in our profession prior to coaching, which most of us had something that we did prior to coaching, if I look back now, the most valuable contribution is when it's a contribution with an openness to other perspectives, when it's collaborative. And so you can say what you're thinking and comes up for you. That's why we bring always something of value that comes from within us. And when you're open to the other perspectives, that's when the beauty of creation happens, of real value, because you can kind of maybe bring bits and pieces and da. So even in coaching, I feel like that's kind of what you said. It sounds like when you bring something as just like you always say, you bring something without attachment, then I think there's value. When you bring it as this is what I'm bringing, and that's what it is, that's when it becomes, what did you just, the word that you used, that's when it's undermining to me.
Okay. Yes. Gaston, I saw that you raised your hand and you put your hand down, and then Lydia.
Yeah, I was in the line of what Shakti was saying about how you co-create with your client and start bringing one option that could be yours or close to your heart or whatever as one of the many, right? This is one way that I will approach this situation or how I will do it, but this is me with my background. And then you can ask us as many people as you want, and each of them will give you options. But my main use of that is usually when the clients are stuck, right? When they say, yes, there are options eventually. After exploring and what else, eventually, okay, yeah, there are ways. There are ways to do things if you want. The question is, do you want?
Yeah, let's get to that. Definitely. I want to, get to a place like how, when, we will talk about that. Lydia.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what you said also implies that I actually know what the problem is, right? If I'm the problem solver, then I know what the problem is. And quite often my clients come to me with something, and what we end up talking about is something completely different, right? After we do the exploration. But I am finding, I'm probably the baby coach in this group. I am very, very new to coaching. But the longer I do it, the faster I realize that I have no idea what my client should do. And I'm not even going to pretend that I do, but definitely I don't even always know what the problem is, right? So
yeah, like I don't hear this as much, but I remember there was a period of time that new coaches, have you ever thought of this and this and this? Have you ever thought of that and that? And the client said, yeah, I tried that, doesn't work. Have you ever tried this and this? Oh yeah, I tried that, it doesn't work. Like, so why ask all of these questions, right? Like, have you ever is not a question. I always say to my students, right? Yeah. Just because it has a question mark at the end, it does not necessarily mean that it is a question. And just because there is a period, it does not mean that it's not a question. Sometimes a period can be a big question for the client. Have you ever is never a question. It's always like, I have a solution. I have an idea for you here, and I'm disguising that as a question, right? The whole idea of, when we tell the client and I say that we are undermining this individual is because in that particular moment, when I tell the client, when I give a solution, when I go and give an answer, underlying that particular moment is the fact of, I know, you don't. Right there in that moment, I'm putting the client less than. The moment that I solve a problem for the client, the moment that I answer, the moment that I tell, the moment that I give an advice, I am telling this individual, I'm disempowering that individual. It is with good faith, it is with good intention, right? Because we want to help. But what we are doing that inadvertently is that I am saying that I have, you don't have. And then it becomes a hierarchical conversation. And coaching is a partnership. The moment that it becomes hierarchical, it's not coaching anymore. Then I am in the role of a mentor. Then I am in the role of a consultant, of a teacher, of a parent, of whatever it is, right? Coaching is a partnership. The client is equal to us. So if I go and I say, and I put myself into the knowing, then I am actually making the client less than. And the whole purpose of coaching is empowering the client so that they can think for themselves, right? So that's why in coaching we say, hey, we are not there to solve problems. We are not there to give the answer. Even when the client comes, as Scott said, and says, well, I'm paying you, give me an answer. That's a cop out from them, right? They are like, okay, I paid you, just tell me what to do, right? And I always say, wouldn't it be easier? Oh, I am longing for that day that I can pay a couple of $1,000s to a person and the person is going to come and solve the problems of my life. I would love that to happen, right? It wouldn't be easy for that to happen. And at the same time, for us as coaches, that person believes that I can solve their problem, right? It's a good pat on the shoulder and makes us feel good about ourselves. I have the answer. Oh, I can solve your problem, right? Makes us feel good as for ourselves as well. And you can see that can be a very dangerous dynamic. The client stays in that place of, I'm going to just sit here and you can just tell me what to do. And I don't have to do the hard lifting. And it can be very dangerous for us because it feeds our ego. It feeds, ourselves. Like, look at how much of a big shot I am. That can be very tricky for us. The value of coaching is not in that kind of relationship. The value of coaching is not on how much we know about the subject matter. The value of coaching is not how smart we are to solve the client's problems. The value of coaching and the show of great skills is in how we are able to empower the client to reflect on their own situation and decide how they want to move forward. Right? That is the value of coaching. Our expertise is not on topics, on answers, and subject matter. Our expertise is in creating the framework. Our expertise is in creating the environment that allows the client into generating insights for themselves. That is the expertise. And let me tell you, it's not an easy expertise, especially because we are so prone to always solving problems. How is that resonating with you? I dropped a bunch of thoughts here for you. Let me put a pause here, hear what's happening in your mind.
It does make a lot of sense, Elias. We were in the morning with Noah, and I was with Manuela. We were in a break room and we were talking about it, and the question was around control. No, what like when does the mastery and control, and with Manuela we had a really nice conversation, and it was okay. Mastery is about having that framework, creating that space with your presence, but leaving everything outside. No, so it was like moving from this that you need to hold, but you need to let go. So it's like that flow, and that's what, I don't know if Manuela, you want to continue.
I think that also we talked about having a structure, because the question was about having a structure in a mastery level in coaching, no? And so we thought that, yes, we should have a structure or not having a structure. And so we decided that maybe, obviously, it's important to follow the rules and the guidelines, but then forget the structure and be really in the moment. Because if we just check box and follow, we are not there. We are in our agenda or in our papers that we have, or not the thing that we studied, but we are not there for the needs of the client. And obviously, this required a lot of skills. So this
There
is
is a
difficult.
Yeah, there is another presentation that I gave here to ICF South Florida. I believe it's called The Artistry of Coaching, that I talk about the form and the flow. It's in the recordings there somewhere. You can probably find it. And I talk exactly about this, that as coaches, we are always walking that fine line between what I call the form and the flow. It's a fine line. That is the artistry. That is the artistic part of coaching. If we are there in the coaching conversation and we are there just to following the markers, following the competencies, we are present to the markers. We are present to the competencies. We are not present to our clients. But if we let go of the markers and the bars and the competencies, then it becomes this mush of this conversation that doesn't have any structure, any skeleton behind that. So the magic happens when a coach is able to put the two things together. That is mastery. That is what we are aiming for. And one of the tenets that we use at Prime Coaching Academy, we call that coaching is simple, but not easy. Because when you look at the structure of the coaching conversation, the framework of the coaching conversation is very simple: beginning, middle, and end. Use open-ended questions, simple language, right? It's very simple. The skills are not that complicated to understand intellectually speaking. But when we are in front of this other human being and we are connecting human to human, everything becomes messy because human beings are messy, right? So like, when people, when educators are talking about establishing a session agreement, right? Oh, okay, so you have to ask about outcome, and then you have to ask about the measures of success, and then you have to ask about the importance, and then you have to ask, what are the things that we need to address here? And then coaches go and say, okay, one question, another question, another question, another question. It doesn't work. At the end of the asking all of those four questions, the client is like as lost as before, and you don't know exactly. And off you go into a coaching conversation that does not have a solid coaching agreement. Why? Because a formula does not work. I always say the points of the session agreement, they are not questions to ask. They are points to consider. We keep those points in the back of our mind, and we go and we interact with the client, and we keep checking. Have we covered that point? How can this point support us in this moment here to support the client into arriving at that session agreement, right? So at every coaching session, it will be different. Every coaching, there is no formula. Every coaching session will be different. If you go to a coach training program and they give you like 4 questions for the session agreement, no, please don't, because that is not going to work. All right. So marking the markers does not make a coaching session powerful. What makes it is that interaction and that artistic way, like human to human way to connect with the client. But that's the primary point, going back here to the head on and head off. The primary point why we as coaches emphasize this idea that we are not there to solve the problem, right? Coaching is not solution-based. Coaching is discovery-based. We are not there to solve the problem. And the reason why we emphasize this idea that coaching is not solution-based, coaching is discovery-based, because the moment that we have a solution, the conversation is over. I answer the question. Goodbye, right? We in coaching, we stay in that space of exploration for the client to develop, for the client to learn, for the client to grow into solving the problems for themselves, into exploring, into noticing that perhaps there is not even a problem, that they thought there was a problem. Maybe there is not a problem. Or if there is an issue, it's that idea of like, let me look around a little bit further, or a little bit more. Let me widen my horizon here so that I can choose what is best for me. And Lydia made a beautiful point here. This idea that whatever solution I have, that is the right solution for me. We need to be very mindful of that. It's not necessarily, most likely actually, will not be the right solution for the other. And that's why coaching is a humbling and courageous act, another tenet that we have at Prime Coaching Academy. Coaching is a humbling and courageous act because we need, as coaches, to be humble enough to realize that all of the 15 PhDs that we have on the wall, all the 150 years of experience in that profession that we have, in that moment when we are with that other individual, that needs to be put aside so that we can encounter the person and we can support that individual to get their PhDs and their experience. That's what is most important. So I'm emphasizing this because this is where we need to be grounded in. That is the coaching mindset that we need to be at any point in a coaching conversation. We need to be solid about that, understanding that it's not that we can't give advice. It's not that we cannot tell the client one thing. It's not that we cannot solve the problem. It's that understanding that giving advice, solving a problem, giving an answer is not effective. It's not valuable. That's what we need to be grounded in, understanding this at the core, because this is what is going to guide us into what to do. I always say in my coach training program, I would like to support my mentees to understanding the why behind it. You know, and I encourage you all about this. Don't follow a rule just because the ICF told you so. Just because your coach training program told you so, just because this big shot MCC told you so. Ask why. Because it is when you understand the reason behind that all of a sudden this is no longer a rule. All of a sudden, of course I'm going to do this because now I understand. Okay? So that is the idea here behind the why coaches don't give advice, don't tell. It's because we are there to support the client in developing themselves. What do you think of that? And I gave you this thought here.
I have a question for you about that, Elias.
Yes.
So I think it's fantastic and I fully believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm a baby enough coach, as I think somebody else just said it, where it's not my automatic yet to be to be that way. I would love if you have any tricks, or maybe not tricks, but any mindfulness practices are helpful for me. But are there any other ways that you feel are helpful to speed along the process of making this the automatic?
Well, I would say meditate on this particular point. This particular point of the idea that the moment that I give an answer, the moment that I tell, that I'm undermining the other person. I think that I'm helping, but in reality, I'm not. The other point that I would like for all of us to consider is that the moment that we are in the solving problem space, we are on the surface. We are in the logistical stuff of the situation. To me, the moment that there is solution coming, there is an eagerness for answers, it's a call for me to what is underneath the waterline? What is behind the waterline? Because at the moment that we go below the waterline, then we realize that that individual experience is so unique. My stuff does not necessarily play there. So usually, I'm going to say this again, usually when we are in a solution-based, when we are in giving answers, it's because we are on the surface of the situation and we are not focused on the individual. So it's an invitation for us to go deeper. What do you think of that? Yes, Lisa.
One thing I like, Shakti, is that how you say your name? Okay. I liked her question, and I always come back to something Elias shared with me in the Prime Coaching Academy. There's nothing to fix. I have it on like a post-it note because there is nothing to fix. And so once I start thinking there is, I'm thinking of solution, advice, circumstance. And there's nothing to fix about this person, only opportunities to explore. And that kind of helps me stay out of that space where I think I need to know. And, the comfort not knowing is still hard for me, but it's kind of my learning edge, like that I'm a great coach because I don't know the answer. Right?
Thank you, Lisa. That's wonderful. Like, we are well trained to know, to solve the problem. And then comes coaching and saying the value that we bring to coaching is to not know. That is completely counterintuitive, right? So what is the value of not knowing, coaches?
But you don't jump into conclusions. You don't lead them to certain destinations that are the usual suspects of those things, right? But talking about what you were saying, Lisa, about there's nothing to fix about the person, and this is a challenge for me. It's not that I want to fix people. Oh yeah, maybe yes. But it is not about. There's nothing wrong with them. I think that the in general terms, I think that I think it's. I hate it when I feel that they are stuck. They're stuck and they're not seeing the possibilities, and that's kind of the thing. So my challenge is to how can not fix the problem, but how can untap the potential that is in them, to see them, and how I can help them move just an inch to see things differently. So that's kind of my challenge. Not fixing them. They make their own decisions. They are adults, but untapping the potential that you see there. That's kind of you have it in you.
Well, I'm going to say one thing to you, Gaston, right from the bat here. First is to recognize that it's not my responsibility to unstuck them. They are the ones who unstuck themselves. It's up to them. The other thing for me is what I said before. How can we go deeper? Because if we are in a space of we need to find a way to get unstuck, usually we need to think of what is going deeper there. And then how do we go deeper? Pay attention to certain things that the client says. I always say, like, pay attention to the neon light words. There are certain things that the client will say in their statement, and then I became overwhelmed over there, or there is this place that this made me overjoyed, or this is a place where I'm stuck, or this is a place that frustrates me. Oh, this person really made me angry. Like these little words that pop in the middle of the statement. Oh, what do you mean by overwhelmed? What was about that situation that made you overjoyed? These are the type of questions that are going to support the client into going deeper into their situation. And then they are going to see, oh, that is what's happening here. Right? That is the role of the coach, to support the client into opening their vision of what they are seeing, because clients come with they have been thinking about that situation for a long time, but they are coming with one particular perspective. Our job is to ask questions, make observations. We're going to talk about that, or whatever it is that supports them in disrupting their way of looking at the situation, right? They are looking at one way of that situation. I'm not there to solve that problem. My role is to support the client into seeing the same situation from a different perspective, because that will widen their point of view, and it will inform them, will give them more information for them to make a decision of how they want to pursue. Make sense? So if you feel that the client is stuck, or if you feel that the client is looking for an answer, how can we go deeper? Let's pay attention to these little things that the client is saying, and support them in exploring them and opening the door, opening the window, opening the viewpoint of that particular situation, because that is what's going to broaden the horizon for them. Excellent. So, all right. So we are here thinking of a coaching mindset. There is no need to change hats. We are going to stay in the coaching mindset because we believe that, and we believe that there is nothing to fix. When I was in coach training, one of my trainers said one thing to me that I will never forget. Our clients are perfect. Our clients are perfect. There isn't absolutely nothing to fix in them. They may not believe in that, but we as coaches, we put ourselves grounded in that situation. What may be at point here for the client is to support them into changing perspective, into looking at the situation differently, right? But they are where they are, and whatever they are is good. Now we are going to support them in exploring so that they can make a decision how they're going to pursue, what they're going to do next. That's the goal of coaching, right? Claudia, you made a statement there. What happened there, Claudia?
No, I was thinking that you are saying is so beautiful, and I would translate it into love your client. Just love your client. It's just like they are perfect. They don't need any fix, and we are there with our hearts, with our presence, and just to listen what they are saying. What is that? Love your client.
100%. That is beautiful, right? When we are in solution mode, right, we are all caught up here. We are in our mind. We are in our world, right? What you're saying there, Claudia, is so powerful. Can we let go of our own world? Can we let go of how beautiful and smart we are with all of the answers and solutions that we can come up? Can we let go of that? That's why coaching is a humbling act. We are going to put that to the side so that we can be for the other individual, loving them. I love that. I love that. We love that individual in front of us. We see the full power, and we are there to support them in building their muscle so that they can empower themselves. Right? That's fantastic. That is where we stay. That is the muscle for us to develop. And this is not easy. It's a simple concept, but it's a very difficult concept because it requires a lot of self-work. Can we let go of having the answer? Can we let go of always solving the problem? That is very hard. For some of us, we have relied our identity in having answers our whole life. And then all of a sudden is coaching inviting us, I can put that to the side. I don't have to know. That's hard. That's hard work. Very hard work. Right? But then once we are in that space where I am there for the other, it's not about me, it's about the other person. Then let's change the channel here. Let's say we are in a coaching conversation and the client is sharing a lot of stuff with us. the whole situation, their thoughts, their ideas, their challenges, whatever is happening. We are human beings too. Of course, we are going to have a response to that. If we don't have a response to the client bringing all of that stuff to us, I would check the pulse. We may be in a different place, right? Yes, we are human beings. Of course, we are going to have a response. And this response will come with all of our experiences, all of the knowledge that we have. All of this is going to come up because it's a natural response as human beings, right? So what do we do with that? That's the question. Am I going to change hats so that I'm going to just dump with the client all the things that are coming in my head? Or how, better yet, and that's the question, how can I do that within the coaching mindset? How can I do that without putting the spotlight on me, keeping the spotlight on the client, and utilize the stuff that is coming up for me as a contribution to the client's process? That's the tricky thing, because we are very well trained to just tell, right? So here's the thing, advice. Let's talk about the word advice. It's not just in coaching that advice is not welcome. I say this regardless of what is the profession. If you are a consultant, if you are a mentor, if you are a teacher, if you are a parent, if someone is trying to give you advice, I always say, turn 180 degrees and run, right? Because advice is all about the other person. It's with good intention, but advice is all about, this is what I think you need to do. And it's not about me. You haven't considered who I am, right? Thank you for your good intention. I appreciate that, but I have a different situation. My life is unique. Don't, what's the word that I want to use? Don't assume that what happened to you is the same thing that is happening to me. So advice to me, regardless of the situation, run away from. There is no need for us to give advice in any role. That's my personal belief, right? And especially in coaching, right? But there are certain things, certain experiences that I may have, certain knowledge that I may have, that perhaps can be of contribution to a client in a big time manner. There are ways that we can share that without necessarily telling the client what to do. So I'm going to open the microphone here. What do you think would be ways for us to share with the client without telling the client? Yes, Lisa.
I actually have to hop. I'm sorry, but one thing I hate to keep saying this, but you've taught me everything I'm spouting off here. Okay, is sometimes I use the words like in my experience, like if they really are pushing for, we've discovered all the possibilities and they just are kind of trying to evaluate them and they really want to know. If I do want to share something, I can say in my experience and say it. But as someone said earlier, I have to be completely detached from whether or not they do anything with that information. I'm literally sharing the information. I have no opinion about what's done with it.
That's a great way there, Lisa. I so appreciate that. Owning it. This is my experience. This is something that happened to me. This is my perspective. This is what I have gained as experience for myself. So in my experience, this is what happened. How might this be important to you? How might this be applicable to your situation? what can you do to, what would be ways to modify this to be to fit your particular situation, right? We may share our situation, only that this is mine, and then we support the client into adapting to what is for them. That's a very clear distinction here. You see the distinction, everyone? It's not that this is the answer, but this is what happened to me, what will happen to you. Thank you, Lisa. What might be, yes, Katja.
I was saying bye to Lisa.
Yes, thank you. What might be other possibilities and other ways that we may share something with the client?
I find it tricky, Elias, and I'm just thinking like leaving behind your ego, but just sharing what's happening to you. I'm sensing this, I'm feeling this, I have the sensation that, but owning what, like if you're an instrument there, what's happening, the sensations you're having of what's going on. That may be a way of sharing.
Yeah, no, it is tricky. And that's why this is an advanced skill. It's something for us to be mindful of. That's why for new coaches, we support the coaches to refrain from this kind of sharing, because we are, as we talked before, we are so prone to telling, we are so prone to solving questions. And then it's very easy for us to go into and put ourselves on the driver's seat and start like guiding the situation and guiding the coaching conversation towards a particular outcome that we think is the right thing. So it's something for us to experiment with and practice and share with your mentor coach and see how things are going for you to be able to get to at that place. But that's why I spent so much time on the mindset, on the reason why. Because if we stay grounded in that space that I don't have to fix, advice is not welcome regardless of where. We are not there to solve the problem. We are there to support that individual in developing their own muscle to how to move forward, right? If we think of the partnership of coaching, not the hierarchical, if we keep our ego in check, once we put ourselves in all of that, then it becomes a little easier for us to be able to share without putting the spotlight on us and without undermining the other individual. Claudia.
Yeah, so I have a question. What happens, or can we apply something like, and this is something that I've been asked from, during a coaching session, the coach said or asked, can I offer a reflection? And for me, it was, I could say no, I could have said, but for me, it was really mindful coming from that coach, asking permission. Can I offer a reflection? So it wasn't really advice, but it was, the coach's reflection, perception of what was probably going on. And I think it was helpful for me. So what do you say about that? What's your opinion?
And I'm going to even give the answer that usually is the best answer for all of these questions in coaching. It depends, right? Because it depends on the relationship that you have with the client. In coaching, it depends, because coaching, we stay in this gray area. Most of the time, it's never black and white. So I would say it depends. So there, and I say it depends because sometimes I hear mentor coaches, coach trainers saying, you have to ask permission, and that is black and white. There are times that we have a deep relationship with the client of trust and safety, that if I ask permission, I'm actually undermining trust and safety. Have you ever seen that? Right? Like if you have to ask permission, it means like, whoa, are we not in a safe space here? Right? I thought that we were in a safe space, but you were asking me permission. It feels like it's such a delicate thing. So it depends on the situation. And that's why we are going to have listening and presence guiding us through the process, because there are many opportunities. And I would say that the majority of opportunities, I would say, that if we have built enough trust and safety with the client, there is no need to ask permission. I'm just going to be open with my client. My heart is open. The client's heart is open, and we are sharing freely.
Yeah, totally.
But there are moments that asking permission is very valuable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah. What happens to me is that sometimes when I have something I have something to offer to the client that may be a little challenging to the client, I usually say something like that. It's not necessarily permission, but I may say to the I have something to share here. Or, and that is like a chun, 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 chun. There is something coming up, and I'm just smoothing the waters, right? And then I deliver that. So then the client, it softens, what I'm going to share with the client. So that's the dance. That's the practice, right? But I am there not because of me, not because what I have to say. I'm there for the client. Okay? Yeah, so sharing information is part of coaching. A couple of things that I want to say about sharing information. First of all, it's an advanced skill. So be careful. I would highly encourage all of you, regardless of where you are in your coaching experience, play with it. But there is a distinction between I'm sharing, and this is the verb that the ICF uses, right? Sharing is not telling. I'm not telling. I'm sharing. I'm sharing something that is from me, right? And so start playing with it. But pay very close attention to where is your heart in that moment of sharing. Are you trying to solve the problem? Are you trying to fix the situation? Are you trying to guide the client? Are you more thinking about yourself and what you have? Are you trying to create value for the coaching conversation? Are you abiding by the cop-out of the client that does not want to do the work? Right? Ask all of these questions before you go and share. If all of that is clear and you have something to offer, play with it. Offer something to the client and offer owning it. This is my experience. This is what came up for me. I noticed something here. How does that work for you? Yeah, Shapki.
All the questions you just asked are ones that you want to basically say no to as a coach, right? And so what are the questions that you want to say yes to in order to feel like it's something that you should even bring up as a share if you have the permission?
So coaches, what would be the questions that we can ask here that we will say yes to before we share something with the client? You included, Shakti.
Do I know if the client needs this share?
That's a great point. It's a great point. Because I may have something, and this is something that happens oftentimes in coaching. Something comes to the surface inside of me, an idea, an experience, a resource, or something. Is this the right moment? Is this the moment for me to share? Is the client ready for that? So oftentimes when something comes to the surface, it's best for us to park that, perhaps even ask a question around it, not necessarily tell, not necessarily share, but ask a question around it. And then we are going to notice that, it's irrelevant what I thought. Or we are going to say, oh no, there is something here. We can ask another question. And then all of a sudden the client comes up with that same thought that we had without us having to say anything. Right? So utilizing the insights, the things that are coming to the surface inside of us as fuel, as information for the questions that we are going to ask. So that comes with the second point that I think it's very important for us to think about sharing information. Just because we have in the coaching core competencies sharing information does not mean that we are going to be sharing information from minute one to the last minute of the coaching conversation, right? This is one standard out of the, how many we have, 80 something standards, right? There are so many. There are 8 core competencies. This is just one standard of all of the core competencies. So we need to be mindful of the frequency that we are doing that. If we are having that inkling to share too often, it may be a red flag for us. What's going on here that we are relying so much into the information that is coming to the surface inside of me, right? And
sorry, Elias.
Well, yeah, Barbara.
Yeah, sorry. And I know maybe it's tricky, or maybe I'm trying to find a way to share without so police, how do you say? So like something creating like sharing, but in the truth, creating like a context, sharing something, and then ask, what do you think? Like create this starting point, which is the idea that is not just sharing, but is like, what do you think about that?
100%. Yeah, remember that sharing information, the standard of sharing information is under the competency of evokes awareness. So the purpose of sharing information is to support an awareness to come inside of the client. So sharing information has the same purpose as asking a question. You know, what is the purpose of asking a question in coaching? Why do we ask questions?
To evoke awareness.
To evoke awareness. We ask questions to support the client into thinking, right? Into processing. Our questions are just prompts for the client to start to process, to think more, to open. Sharing information is the same purpose. Sharing information is not to give an answer, not to finalize, not to solve the problem. Sharing information is just a contribution for more thinking to happen within the client. If I share an information that is point, period, that's not coaching. Because coaching, the purpose of coaching is to support the thinking process within the client. So, Shotki, to go back to your question there, you know, actually, those questions that I'm asking is not that it's no. It's more like a wondering, right? Where am I? Where is my mindset? Right? That's what we need to be mindful of when we go and we talk with the client. What else?
I have a related question to this, Elias. I'm sorry, I have so many questions. This mindset of bringing a share in this way, because we are not the only ones conditioned to walk around with the thought that something that we share needs to be accepted, and that we're here for solutions and The client walks in with that same perspective, and sometimes at least in my experience, limits themselves in exploration because they're so solution focused. What are your thoughts in relation to making this sharing concept and talking about that as you're designing your alliance so that the client understands? I always find it necessary, but I sometimes wonder if I go overboard with this so that they understand how to interpret a share in advance of me even bringing a share. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, beautiful. So you were talking about a very important point here. First of all, establishing a coaching agreement, an overarching coaching agreement. What are the expectations of the process? Because oftentimes, to this day, clients hire coaches because they think that the coach is there to just solve the problem for them. Right? That goes back to what Scott said, I'm paying you, so give me an answer. Right? So it's very important that in establishing an overarching coaching agreement, that there is a clarification of what is coaching and what is the distinction between coaching and consulting, coaching and mentoring, coaching and teaching, and all of that stuff. However, you can explain coaching to a client 1,000 times, and clients are still going to come and they are going to ask a question and they are going to expect an answer of you. So that is why right there in the coaching conversation, it's the moment that we need to be mindful of when we are answering questions, whether if the client is in that space or if it's us in that space, we are at a surface level. We are thinking about the situation. We are not thinking about the person. So the question for us there, and that is the skill, regardless of the ask from the client. How can I support this individual to go deeper? How can I deepen my listening? What is causing me to stay on the surface? That is the challenge for the coach. That's the skill of the coach. How can I, sorry for the thumbs up there. My computer does these things once in a while, and I don't, it's fun. So, why in that moment when there is, regardless if it's coming from me or if it's coming from the client, it's those questions again. What is causing us to stay on the surface level? What is the skill that I'm going to take here, that I'm going to pull up? What is the tool that I'm going to use here to support me and the client to go deeper? So here's a question for you all. Why do we need to go deeper in coaching?
To evoke awareness.
What does that mean, Claudia?
Facilitate a deeper thought from our client. Let them think a little bit more.
Because right there, in going deeper, is where transformation happens.
Yeah.
If we are on the surface, coaching is going to become transactional. We are going to solve a problem here today, but we did not address the core issue. And we solve the problem for today, and everybody's happy. And then tomorrow, the problem is going to show up again. And then we put another Band-Aid because we are solving the problem. We put another Band-Aid. A month later, the problem is going to show up again. That is the value of coaching, because coaching doesn't stay on the surface. Coaching doesn't stay simply on the solution. Coaching goes deeper into the core issues so that the problem does not show up again. Or if it shows up again, it shows differently because of different situations, different reasons. Our job as coaches is to go deeper into what is the cause of the situation. And where is the cause of the situation? We don't have an answer because it's individual. Susan.
Yeah. So, how do I want to ask this? So I like the way you were saying that, and in the sense that, you help them come up with a solution, or they take what you have, like, let's say, in my experience, blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, great, I'm going with that, and then they realize, oh, well, that might have worked right there, but that's not working here. So is that, well, I have two questions. So is there anything wrong with, I shouldn't say anything wrong. Is that not a bad thing because it helps the person that you're coaching understand, I am not going to always have the solutions for you. So I think that's a good learning for them to then say, so here's what, instead of you just taking that solution, or my experience is then taking it and saying, so how could this work for you in a better way? Or what about my experience doesn't work, or don't you think will work for you? Right. And so, yes, it may take time, but I also think it's that building that relationship, right? That really helps. The other thing I was going to ask you is, so how do you, like, let's say just that situation I gave you. I say, well, in my experience, this is what I've seen other clients do. How do I then help them get deeper into that right then? Is it to ask the questions I would have asked the next week, which would have been, like, does this work for you? Or, what are some of the benefits of this? What are some of the drawbacks? Are those the right types of questions
Yeah.
to go deeper?
Oh, Susan, it depends, right? In every situation. Here's the thing. That's why sharing information is just one skill, and we need to be very mindful of when and how we are going to do this. The frequency, the timing, all of this is crucial. Just because we have this conversation here, it does not mean that tomorrow in your coaching conversation with the client, so now I'm going to share everything that comes up for me. No, that's not what I'm saying. Right? Because we need to be mindful of timing. We need to be mindful what is most important here for the client. Maybe something that came up for me is just something to inform my questions, but not necessarily for me to share with the client. There are all of these considerations for us to keep in mind, because the client in what you shared is something important for us to keep in mind as well. If I share something, this particular client, is this client prone to just accept that as the answer? If it is, it's something for us to not share.
Right.
Right?
Okay. Because you're learning, right.
Exactly, because we noticed that this client is prone to just going ahead and taking whatever I say. We need to be mindful that coaching, because we are the professional, it's very easy for the client to put us on a pedestal. Very easy. And we need to avoid that at all costs. Has to be a partnership all the time. And I forgot the second point that you had.
No, I don't remember either.
Yeah. So all of this is a lot of learning, a lot of practice, a lot of listening. There are times for this, there are times for not, right? And that is the practice. That, as I said, sharing information, in my point of view, is an advanced skill. I would encourage all of you to practice with it, but keep in mind the solid foundation that we talked about. The mindset that you share that information, it will make all the difference. If we are not grounded in the coaching mindset at that point, we are going to be undermining the whole coaching process. The bottom line here, we need to go because Gaston has some points here for us before we go. But I think that the primary point that I would like to make here in our conversation here today is that, this whole idea of taking the hat on, hat off, and putting another hat on, there is no need for that, right? We coaches, we share information. We have an open relationship with the client. One of the things that we have in our core competencies that I love so much is the ability of the client to be authentic, transparent, vulnerable with the client. There is a quote here that I would like to share with you. This comes from Nancy Klein's book, More Time to Think. Love Nancy Klein. Highly encourage anything of Nancy Klein. She's fantastic. She's not a coach, but to me is the person that verbalizes coaching in the most articulate manner. And right here at the beginning of chapter 8, she has a couple of phrases. And one of the phrases that I think is very powerful, she says, withholding or denying information results in intellectual vandalism. Isn't that powerful? I so believe in that. And I think that this is something for us to keep in mind. If you have something in your heart in the middle of a coaching conversation and you completely withhold this just because the ICF told you so, which is not true. The ICF did not say for you to do that, right? You're actually creating an intellectual vandalism. I am a firm believer of that. Relate to your clients with an open heart, right? Transparency, authenticity, vulnerability is a crucial part of coaching. But be very careful. Where is your heart at the moment that you're going to share something with the client? Be very mindful. And that's why we as coaches need to do tremendous work in self-awareness, in growing. Where is our ego? There is no place for ego in coaching, right? Where are we positioning ourselves? If we are in that place of authenticity, vulnerability, humility, when we share something with the client, that is a contribution to the client's process. And that's where we want to be. Okay? If you have any questions, if you have any challenges or anything, please contact me. Okay? You can find me on LinkedIn. My name is very easy to find. There is no other person in the world that has the same name that I have. So find me. Please subscribe to Prime Space on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Please listen to that. Share with me. Send me emails. I love to interact with coaches. It's a joy. Claudia, you have a question.
Just share the book.
Yeah.
Share the book just one more time. The cover of the book.
Definitely. It's called More Time to Think by Nancy Klein.
Thank you.
I put the link on the chat.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Gaston.
So before first of all, thanks, Elias, for this amazing and interactive session. I hope that everyone has enjoyed as much as I have. And we appreciate that you took the time to be here with us today and be part of this summit, this spring summer summit. So we appreciate that. You always are around helping us and supporting us, our chapter. So we appreciate that. Thank you everyone for participating. And we have a couple of notes before we go. So just in case, ICF South Florida has partnered with a business show that is happening in May in Miami, in Miami Beach, and we are giving complimentary tickets in case you are in town, if you are around and you want to attend this amazing event that has opportunity to network and connect with other professionals. And hopefully we are going to have a booth there so we can connect and we have a personal conversation one-on-one if you are around and in town. So that's the link. I will put it in the chat right now, just in case. And I will send it also. I will send a follow-up email to everyone that attended the session. And the second part is if you can kindly help us by completing this feedback survey. That will help us, of course, understand what you gain from these sessions, how we can improve them in the future, how we can make it better. And eventually, if there are any topics that we have not been addressing, any questions that you have that we haven't not been responding or answering, and we can answer them in the future. We have more of these sessions coming this week, more sessions coming throughout the year, of course, as ICF South Florida has as accustomed to, and hopefully the autumn series, master series, will happen soon. So with that said, we thank you again. for being there. I'm gonna share now. We'll stop sharing this, and I'm gonna put the links in the chat so you can eventually complete it. I have already put that one. This is
And I put my email, I put my, the link to my Prime Coaching Academy, and also the link on LinkedIn. Please follow the page as well. It would be wonderful to connect with you.
Awesome. So thanks, Elia, once again. Thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Elias.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It was
Bye,
great.
everyone.
Fantastic.
Elias.